Welcome to the Leadership Labs podcast. This is where we speak with founders, technical leaders, and AI experts across Europe and Switzerland. Each episode dives into the decisions behind building ML teams, scaling real-world AI, and shaping the future of applied research and product. In this episode, I'm speaking with the CTO of YUUNIQ Health, Nicolaj, a company using AI to personalize nutrition and health outcomes at scale. So we'll talk through what it takes to build AI products in regulated environments and what impact really looks like when you're applying machine learning to human health. So, Nicolaj, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm super glad to be here.
Brilliant. Well, look, we'll get started. So, generally, when I have guests onto the show, it'd be good for our audience to just get an understanding of your background and how you ended up, sort of founding and being the CTO of YUUNIQ Health. So, can you just give the audience a bit of an overview into your background and how you come to the position that you're in now?
Sure. I have a background I studied at ETH Zurich. Initially, I focused on mechanical engineering, then moved on to the field of robotics. Quickly realized that the software part is actually more interesting than the hardware part. And so dived into software, now almost like 10 years of experience. I worked in different startup environments, but also in big corporates. I worked as an ML engineer at AWS, where I gained a lot of experience also working in the healthcare sector. When I was working at AWS, I was doing super interesting projects, also in pharmaceutical industry, but also in research. For example, I was working on cancer detection on genomics data. And on the other hand, my brother, who's a doctor, I talked with him a lot, and I saw all these issues on his day-to-day work. And I thought, wait, there is a big gap between what is actually being done in the industry and what actually helps people in the field. And so that was one of my motivations why I started YUUNIQ Health.
So fantastic. Just going back to what you mentioned there in terms of the projects that you worked on before around sort of cancer detection and genomics, how did you use those experiences to obviously found sort of YUUNIQ Health? Has that sort of been one of the main drivers? How has that sort of shaped your vision for now?
One of the leading principles in these fields are keeping a human in the loop and explainability. Especially in regulated environments, we have to make sure that every output from an AI or a machine learning model is somehow traceable, is somehow explainable. And we can't have random outputs to the same input, right? These were kind of the main problems even back then when I was working on that project was actually explainability. And how can we explain to the experts how the model derived in these conclusions? So these are the key principles that are definitely trying to integrate into our DNA from the start, especially also in our case where we enable patients to directly interact with the AI. It's highly relevant that we can guarantee a certain quality of the output.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So in terms of the integration part, it's around sort of blood tests, right? And you kind of integrate into Aura. Can you tell a bit more about sort of how the integration sort of works on that side?
Sure. Yeah, maybe let's give a quick overview of what we do at YUUNIQ. The main goal of YUUNIQ Health is prevention, right? Our vision is to detect the 10 most common chronic diseases as early as possible based on data. Nice. So how we do that is we combine blood data with wearable data that gives information about people's lifestyle. And by having these two data types, we can not only look very deep into a person's health with a regular blood, as with a regular blood test, but we can actually also know a bit more about what this person been doing throughout the rest of the year. So this kind of combines best out of both worlds. We can have a continuous monitoring on the patient's health based on the continuous wearable data. At the very core, what I would say that the heart of YUUNIQ and our technology is our AI agent CDIS. And CDIS is an agent that can actually navigate a vast amount of your health data. And you can really ask him any questions, and he's kind of your companion, and he can, guide you and can also alert you if there were some patterns detected that you were not aware of. You get alerted, and you get also recommended to maybe do another blood test in 3 months or so. This is at the core what we're doing.
Nice. You mentioned there in terms of the actionable insights, so it kind of alerts you when you maybe need to get another blood test as well. In terms of what sort of the other insights that it can kind of sort of provide? Is there more sort of data you can kind of provide from or gain from obviously the platform? What other sort of insights can you sort of garner from from Yunniq?
Sure. I mean, I mentioned the vast amount of data, right? So to help patients and doctors navigate this this amount and to simplify, we actually created, of course, also with medical guidelines. We created rules and scores that can actually simplify some parts of your health. For example, we can calculate a cardiovascular score for you. We can calculate your cardiovascular fitness, your stress levels, which sometimes is, I mean, the wearable providers, they try to estimate your stress levels, but it's more of like immediate stress and not actually chronic stress, which I think is more harmful. We can check your activity levels, sleep patterns, and so on. And so all these scores help the user to actually understand their health in a more simplified way. And of course, if these scores are changing, becomes immediately clear that, something has changed or needs to be changed.
Do you guys sort of provide these recommendations after sort of the actionable insights are sort of given? How does that sort of work? Do you give sort of recommendations if someone's maybe slightly more stressed, from in certain parts of the day? Is there maybe like a recommendation that the application gives the user?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I would say the entry point is always when a user is doing a blood test, right? That's where we actually get a lot of relevant information from a patient, and then we will incorporate all the lifestyle data to actually make a customized report for this particular patient and give customized recommendations and interpretations of their values, right? Because even for example, these typical reference ranges that you sometimes know, the laboratories are trying to actually sometimes personalize it, but they never get the full picture of who you really are and what's your lifestyle and what are other driving factors regarding your health.
Oh, no, that's really cool. In terms of, again, because I think when we initially spoke, obviously you mentioned as you say, from a blood test, there's a lot of data points and there's a lot of really interesting data that's not necessarily maybe pulled up upon because you go to your GP or your local doctor and they just say, okay, look, everything's fine.
Exactly.
You're absolutely fine. Don't need to worry. Or maybe there's something that might be slightly small, but then they kind of focus on that part. But there's so much more data. In terms of that side with your platform, how do you ensure that sort of the data insights are understandable for non sort of technical sort of users or people that are kind of well versed in sort of the medical field? How do you do that?
Right. I mean, that is truly the power of LLMs. Right. I mean, there have been earlier studies, even I think it was with GPT 3.5, where they compared the answers from GPT to answers from doctors on some medical questions. And even back then, I mean, the accuracy was much higher with the AI generated response, but surprisingly, even the empathy was much better. People received the answers from GPT 3.5 more empathetic and more thorough overall than the answers from the doctors. So this really is, I mean, I think it's a perfect example how technology can actually take something that is super complex and explain it in a meaningful way and in a simple way. With our system, we're actually also going a step further because we're constantly learning about the user. And so we already know at what level of detail we should explain something to the user, right? It's not like just, it's not the same answer for every profile. It depends also a bit on your experience and so on.
That's really insightful. It's quite good to know on that. That's how it works, and it's really exciting stuff. Obviously, you guys being a startup, again, I speak to a lot of founders, and they're always at different points, right? In terms of the investment side, and even sort of scaling, and just even sort of growing the product, and in that natural sort of growth phase. From your perspective, right now, what's been some of the biggest challenges so far in terms of getting Yunniq off the ground? Have there been maybe some things that have come along the way that have been sort of quite challenging that you've sort of learned from? What would you say has been the main things for you?
As I mentioned before, like gathering and analyzing and processing user data, especially with the continuous nature of variable data, it's super important that we have validated our algorithms, and we actually know that the information that we retrieve is relevant and clinically found. So that's that. And then maybe from a business perspective, not sure if I mentioned it before, but so we actually, our vision is not to replace doctors. We actually want to enable doctors. We believe in a hybrid approach. And so part of our challenge was also convincing doctors, interestingly enough, because, well, I think prevention is not on the top of their menus. So we simply don't have the time. And what bothers me a bit about this argument is that it's extremely short-sighted. It's not taking into consideration that the prevention is actually a cure to this problem, so that people won't get sick in the first place. And so it's a really overloaded healthcare system that is making short-term sacrifices or short-term decisions rather than looking into the future and seeing how we can improve it long-term. So this is some of the challenges. But that being said, we have amazing medical partners. We have amazing medical advisors. They all believe in our vision, and they support us, and we're already working with multiple doctors. And so the feedback is also good, but it's just like a bit divided. So there are like these generations of doctors that really believe in it, and still a bit more,
It's just trying to convince that other half, right? As you say, because a lot of people, they think, generally speaking, not even just in the medical landscape, but across the world, obviously AI are going to sort of take our jobs, but it's not necessarily the case at all. It's just enabling people to actually do their job better, and kind of, as you say, like in that hybrid approach, work alongside, coinciding, actually working together to actually get a better result all round. So there's not much kind of room for error, really. What's generally speaking, in terms of the exciting stuff, then, what sort of the next steps for you guys? Where are you guys at now? Are you sort of looking to go for investment rounds? What sort of the stage that you're at now?
So we spent many months iterating and working with doctors and patients to really shape the product and reach product market fit. And I think we're now at the stage where we looking into different partnerships that actually help us scale and distribute this solution in Switzerland, but also abroad. And so there are a few interesting partnerships coming up, but I can't really say something about it. But
Nice,
stay
awesome.
tuned.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. So the plan is, obviously, as you say, obviously with the data being stored in Switzerland, obviously to get Swiss-based sort of partners, but to branch out as well across Europe. Is that also the aim?
Yes, definitely. The Swiss market is interesting. Swiss healthcare system is interesting. I would argue it's one of the best healthcare system in the world. But in terms of market size, I think there is a lot of potential also outside of Switzerland.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Just a couple more things then. From your perspective, looking at the general landscape, as you say, with AI being integrated, as we discussed earlier, and like that sort of hybrid model and making just general healthcare much more efficient going forward. In terms of AI over the next 5 years, where do you see, from your perspective, the biggest sort of opportunities, would you say? Would you say it's, is it some of these smaller startups that are coming up that may be picking out something that's really, really sort of niche in their particular field? Is it something much more broader? What would you say in that regard?
Yeah, so I think Bill Gates recently mentioned that he thinks in 10 years, AI will replace doctors. There won't be any doctors anymore. I'm not sure if I agree with that statement. Frankly, I don't. Because, as I mentioned before, I think we really believe in this hybrid model. And while AI can do a lot of stuff very good, and knowledge becomes really more of a commodity, there is still, I would say, like the last 10 or 20% that AI can't do. And so it just becomes more important how we as humans can shine within that 20%. And so again, I don't think doctors will be replaced. I think there will be many processes, especially in healthcare, especially in the healthcare system, that can be automated. that can be, well, also improved in terms of quality. I mean, everyone is afraid that the AI makes mistakes, but I mean, let's be honest, we've all been seeing doctors and they told us not the truth or not the right thing, right? So there are many mistakes being made by humans already. So I think the AI systems can actually already be better in that regard also.
Mm.
Of course, I mean, especially like looking back also the past 10 years, there have been a lot of improvements in medical imaging, processing images, computer vision, and so on. But now I think it's really the time of LLMs.
It's interesting to see your point. Again, as you say, like LLMs are very much prevalent right now.
Yes.
But as you say, on that, with the startups that we've spoken to and working with as well on the medical imaging front, some really, really exciting stuff as well. And and I'll be inclined to say that, it's just having that efficiency all round, but also that the human element too of having a doctor, actually is quite very much in the know and very well educated and decorated in their field and in their specific medical domains to understand what's going on, but just utilize AI as a tool to just make sure their answers are as efficient and as precise as possible, right? And LLMs can obviously help to do that, which is great. And then just one more question then, Nicolaj, in terms of advice, from your perspective with where you're at now with Yunniq, if there's, again, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that watch the show, people that have started found ups, people that are thinking about doing so, people that are very much well into the world already. But from your perspective, is there any advice looking back now you wish you'd have gained before maybe starting a startup, or maybe even to some founders right now? What would you generally say is the best advice from your perspective?
Well, choose who you're going to battle with.
Yeah.
But I guess that's something that people say a lot, but I can't emphasize this enough. It's like you're marrying someone, right? And people sometimes they hear these stories like, well, there was a startup, they had this huge valuation only after 1 year, they exited after 2 years, and then they live in this dreamland. But this is not the reality for most of the startups, right? They struggle for years. There are ups and downs. Maybe you're in this for like 10 years until you actually get successful, or even you don't. You have to be prepared. So maybe go to Zermatt in Switzerland, stand in front of the Matterhorn, look up and think about who you want to have with you when you go up there.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Fantastic. Nicolaj, look, really appreciate you having you on. We'll put all the relevant links for people to find you guys, check out Yunniq Health. Yeah, look, really great having you on the show.
All right. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you for another lightning episode of the Leadership Labs podcast. If you found today's episode thought-provoking and insightful, be sure to subscribe to the Leadership Labs on your preferred podcast platform or on YouTube. And thanks for listening. Hope to see you in the next episode.